Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. People will be joining us, but I don't want to cut into our hour of time too much. My name is Amy Belote, and I'm the Operations Director for Summer Science Program. And I'm going to speak a little bit later on. We also have Helen Kai, who is one of our alumni, as well as a two-time TA, and she will be here mostly to help us moderate questions that come in and keep us on time. She may answer a few questions as well. We have several recent alumni with us, and they'll introduce themselves in a little bit, and you'll hear a lot of answers from them today. And we also have our Executive Director, Richard Bowden, and he is going to get us started.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Richard Bowden. I'm Executive Director of the Summer Science Program. We're an independent nonprofit. I know you have a lot of questions about logistics and schedule and so forth as that, and we will get to those, but I wanted to just start off with the big picture. So next slide, please, Amy. What is SSP? It's a little bit hard to explain to people because it doesn't fit into any of the usual categories that people understand. So I'd really rather it's easier to start with what it is not. Next slide. It's not a camp. Camps are great. I love camps, but the word connotes a certain lack of seriousness of purpose. At SSP, camp is a four-letter word, in fact. Of course, people do have fun at SSP, but typically the fun happens while they're working hard, not instead of working hard. Next slide. And it's not a school. I see three major differences between SSP and a school. First difference, as a high school student, you learn about science. You learn facts, you regurgitate them on the test. For every question on the test, there's a right answer. What scientists do day to day is really much different than that. Almost the exact opposite. Doing science means you are the one asking the questions, not answering them. And you're not asking an authority or a person to answer the questions. You're asking the natural universe to answer the question. So SSP gives you a taste of that. You both learn about science and also do science. Second difference with schools teach you the middle. They really have to. The person who finds high school easy, and I'm guessing many of you are in that category, don't often feel challenged, seldom feels confused, seldom has to ask anyone for help. Then they get to college and they suddenly get slammed. And sometimes that could be a major hit to their self-confidence, and then some of them change to some easier major. They change from physics to business or something like that because that seems like the right thing to do. But what they really needed at that point was better coping skills. At SSP, the pace is so fast that nobody can keep up by themselves. Everyone feels lost and confused some of the time, so everyone learns to ask for help from faculty and from one another without shame. It's a safe place to learn how to fail and recover from it. And thirdly, schools give grades. Each student has a GPA and a class rank. There's a culture of competition that comes from that naturally, of winners and losers. The culture at SSP is of collaboration instead. All right, next slide. So, what is it? Next slide. It's an immersive experience in experimental science that's evolved in its design over 6 decades to meet the very specific needs of rising high school seniors and maybe a few rising juniors who are very smart and motivated in STEM. Next slide. And it's operated by people who were once just like that. This is a picture of the SSP class of 1974. For example, next slide. And that is me. SSP is the only enrichment program operated and largely funded by its own alumni and their parents. Alumni fund the financial aid, more or less. And we do that because we want you to have the same kind of transformative experience that we did when we were your age. So next slide. One of my favorite metaphors is SSP is like going on a research mission on a submarine cruising under the polar ice cap for a few weeks. It's that kind of intense working together closely and essentially not doing anything else for that time, more or less. Next slide. Another metaphor is You are like a race car, and in high school, you're driving in city traffic. You know you can go faster, but you haven't had a chance yet to get out of second gear. Next slide. An SSP is the open highway with no speed limit. And you can learn very fast, and you can drive very fast, and that will feel thrilling, but there's another side to that. Even a fast car has a maximum speed. And at SSP, you will find your maximum speed. And that might be a bit of a shock, but also the second shock is that some cars will be faster, at least on some kinds of roads, they will, right? So it depends. So you might find this discouraging. Next slide. If this has never happened to you before, you might be discouraged, but that's when you learn that asking questions and reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness or of stupidity. It's a habit practiced by all successful people. And you will learn that teamwork is not others slowing you down. It's really the only way to solve the hardest problems. Next slide. So at SSP, we work together and we leave no one behind. No one fails as long as they're willing to do their best and work hard. Next slide. So our goal for you is that this experience will help you to focus and upgrade your own personal goals and aspirations. You learn about yourself. Next slide. You learn what it feels like to be a STEM major at a selective college. Is that educational path a good fit for you? Why or why not? Can you do it? Do you like it? Next slide. What does it feel like to be a scientist doing research? Is that career path a good fit for you? Why or why not? Can you do it? Do you like it? Next slide. What does it feel like to be a member of a community of people who are all at least as smart as you, maybe smarter? Is that a situation you want to seek out in the future or avoid? Next slide. So after SSP, you know these answers, and that will make you a better college applicant and a better college student. You'll know what you want from college and why. Next slide. So that's the big picture. That's my introduction of why we do this a certain way that we do. And I will turn it back over to the panel.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Before we go on and introduce and have the panelists introduce themselves, I'd like you to feel free to use the Q&A to answer any questions as they come up. We did get some questions before as people registered, so we'll try and address all of those. So feel free to put questions in the question and answer or in the chat, and we'll get to those in a little bit. So let's go ahead, panelists, if you'd like to introduce yourselves. Shelby, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby Cherkis, and I'm from San Mateo, California. I attended SSP in the Biochem at Indiana University virtually summer 2020, so a few months ago. I definitely got a lot out of SSP. I think while I was in it, the best part was getting to know all of the peers and growing this amazing network of passionate and inspired other students who I can't wait to meet in person and work with and cross paths with in the future, and also the faculty. So that was pretty incredible. I think the biggest surprise and also lasting impact was getting to combine so many areas of knowledge, like biology and chemistry, obviously, but also statistics, programming, writing, and all the collaborative skills that we learned. I think that was a really satisfying experience to put all those skills together to do real science and create this final product. And it made me really excited about getting educated in all of those areas in the future.
All right, Kai, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Kai. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I was also in SSP in 2020 in astrophysics at New Mexico Tech. And for me, I think similarly, my favorite part about SSP was just the people and the fact that it's such like a long-lasting network that I didn't expect. And SSP also, like, despite it being extremely like really difficult and challenging for me at times, I gained a lot of confidence in myself and my abilities throughout. And it also like had a really big impact on my what I want for my career choice in the future. Like I went into SSP wanting to be an engineer, and then afterwards, just like being exposed to research and doing research the whole summer. Now it's like I'm pretty set on wanting to do research in the future. So yeah, it taught me a lot, and I hope to be able to share that with you guys now.
All right, Bolu, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Bolu, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I participated in the summer science program last summer in 2020 in Indiana University in biochemistry. And like kind of like what Shelby and Kai said, like the community was like really like a big part and like super supportive. And like that was something I wasn't really like expecting, because like I was just so surprised by like how supportive like all of our campus mates and all of our TAs and all the professors were. Like, and it was encouraged to like ask questions even when you're confused, which is something that like you don't really get to experience like in your regular high school. So that was something that really helped me. And I feel like that really is going to prepare me for like college and beyond, and like all the stuff that I hope to explore. And it also really solidified like my interest in like biochemistry and STEM.
Okay, Mateo, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Mateo, and I'm from Menlo Park, California. I attended SSP this last summer at the Indiana campus with Shelby and Bolu in biochemistry. And so what surprised me about SSP was really how explorative it was, and how I really didn't know that I wanted to do research. And after having done SSP, I'm fully set on doing research in college. And another thing that surprised me was how much more it was than just work. Meeting people and hanging out with them on weekends, and still talking to so many people even 7 months after the program is over. That's what really surprised me and what I really liked about it.
Okay, Jenny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Wacage. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I was also in SSP 2020 this past summer at Purdue University for biochemistry. And like everyone's been saying, definitely my favorite part of SSP, at least one of my favorite parts, was just all the amazing people that I met. Honestly, everyone was just so kind and welcoming, and there were no dumb questions, honestly, because as was mentioned before, a lot of times you might be like, considered one of the smartest people at your school. And so coming to a place like this, it can seem somewhat intimidating to ask questions because you may have never had to do that before. But an environment was created that questions were encouraged and, applauded for actually attempting to do the work that is very difficult, but it was made easier by all the people around you, and it was a very welcoming community. And while the work was difficult, something that honestly surprised me about it is that you walk out being able to understand more than you thought you were able to once you walk in, because it's definitely difficult work. You might not understand all the details, but I was surprised by how much of the fundamental things I was able to understand, and that really improved my confidence with the subject of like biochemistry. And it really made me want to continue research because, I had never done research before SSP. So it was just a really great experience, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, and Anicia?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anicia. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and I was a part of SSP in 2019 at the Purdue campus in biochemistry. So I didn't get to experience the virtual aspect of it, but I will say that the experience was very, very rewarding, and similar to what everyone else said. I think the program just really allows you to explore different just career choices and academic curriculum that you might not have been able to get in high school and that you might consider pursuing in college. So I know similar to what Kai said, I went in wanting to be an engineer, but I did biochemistry, and now I'm really interested in biochemistry. And even in my classes in college now, I've been able to use some of the material that I learned in SSP to help understand what we're learning in college. So I would really recommend this program and hope that everyone who does partake in it really gets the full experience of just an amazing community and also an amazing curriculum.
Okay, great. Thank you all. I'm going to talk for just a few minutes to handle some of the big picture questions that we know that are out there. People have been asking questions already. And so I'm actually going to show you the website. I hope that most of you have been able to visit the website at least a bit. And I want you to be able to go to the website and find the answers yourself. We'll also answer as many questions as we can here, and we will have ways for you to follow up. But we hope that everyone starts with what is SSP, and you can kind of follow the website in order through each menu to find what you are looking for. We did have a couple of specific questions about the topics that are covered in each research project. So when you apply, you have to choose either astrophysics or biochemistry, and each of those has a place in the menu here, and that'll tell you more about what the specific research project is like. And down towards the bottom, it tells you what topics you'll be studying, and similar for biochemistry. We also had a couple questions about the impact that SSP has on its participants. And so over here under Explore again, how SSP changed me. Every year we compile the reaction of participants right at the end of the program. They get to make a statement about how what they think the essence of SSP is and how it has impacted them. So you can read quotes from this year's participants and see a little bit of what that impact is and what it was like to be a participant at SSP. There are also several questions about the application itself. So there's a whole section just on the application. We encourage you again to start at the top and read through the how-to and the FAQs. And then you get to your application and all the pieces are there on one page. And you can, of course, email us if you have questions about your specific application. We won't go over those today. All right, I'm going to stop the screen share and talk a little bit about the online aspect of SSP. Of course, last year when we went online, it was a bit of a surprise last-minute decision. And we planned and put things together very quickly, and it turned out that it worked well. Oh, you know what? I'm just looking at the chat now, and I realized that we didn't get to Juliana. I'm sorry, I missed you in my going through the order. We're going to pause here for a minute. I'm sorry that I overlooked you. Juliana, go ahead.
It's okay. Hi, I'm Juliana Cabrera from Miami, Florida, and I did SSP for astrophysics at the Colorado University Boulder campus this past summer. And like everyone else mentioned, SSP was just amazing because of the experience and the community. It was just a place where I felt really included. And despite going to school where it's a lot of smart kids, it was a different environment where you didn't really feel like you were competing with each other, but rather helping each other and finding out new things every single day that you didn't know before. And it's just an experience I really recommend to like everyone.
Thank you. And again, I apologize for zipping right past you. So back to the online aspect. We don't know exactly what the online schedule will be. We know that we have a lot of international applicants, and we have people with lots of different schedules and trying to plan their summers, and we don't know an exact schedule. So a lot of people have asked what the specific schedule will be, and we don't have that yet. Admitted students will be given a proposed schedule, and they can decide at that point if they agree to that or not. We can tell you in general, it will be about 8 hours a day of scheduled time. Some of that will be a bit more formal and more structured. Some of it will be more informal, working in your groups with your TAs, but you should plan to have 8 hours of dedicated time on Zoom. You'll need a little bit of time outside of those 8 hours to watch lectures, study, do your problem sets, things like that. So it is a full-time commitment, and we expect you to not have anything else to do if you commit to SSP. And we do try to make the hours manageable for everyone around the world. We did have people in time zones all over the world. The majority of the people in SSP are in the US, so we make it comfortable for US time zones, and we make it doable for other time zones. So some people on the other side of the world will have to have early mornings or late nights, and but it was manageable for everyone all around the world literally last year. So we plan to do that again when we see where people are from, what time zones everyone is in. So that specific detail will be announced a bit later. We also had a lot of questions about how can we replicate SSP in person online. And I think, Helen, maybe you want to jump in and speak to this, because Helen has seen both the in-person and the online. But we do try to preserve as many of the components of in-person SSP and translate them to the online environment. So I think really the only thing that we lost, besides the actual hands-on lab or telescope, obviously we can't send everyone a telescope or a lab, but the only other component that was missing is field trips. And we are considering whether we can do virtual field trips this year and whether that would be worth it. But many of the other components of in-person SSP happened in Zoom. And so Helen, do you want to add anything to that of how it compares?
Sure. So just, a quick introduction of myself. My name's Helen. I've had, I think, some of the most haphazard SSP experience. I've done Astro and Biochem as a participant, and I've also been a TA for both campuses, both in person and online. And I think, in my opinion, there's always two things that SSP really strives to preserve, and that is, one, the academic experience, which you've heard Richard talk about, but also the personal experience. So I do think the academic experience, from my perspective as a TA, was still all there. Participants are still challenged. You're still doing the same work. But like Amy said, the only difference is you might not be at a telescope or at a bench. As for the personal experience, and maybe some of the panelists can chime in on this, I think that spark of SSP connection was still there as well. People do get to know each other because you're spending, 6-8 hours a day on Zoom together with your peers who are going through the same thing as you are. And as a TA and as faculty, we're also very conscientious of the fact that we are all far apart. This is a very challenging time. And so, we do try to acknowledge that and, form that cohesion as best we can through an online platform. And so again, maybe this is something that the panelists can touch on later, but I do think it was a resounding success. And it was pretty much as good as SSP can be, when you're not 36 people in a desert together.
All right, thank you, Helen. While you get some questions queued up and ready to go to the panelists, I have just one more general area that I'll address, and that's applications. Several people have asked about test scores, and we realize that many of you don't have test scores you would have under normal circumstances, and the SAT has been canceled. And so if you don't have test scores, that is okay. It's not held against you. If you'll have test scores, but after the deadline for application, the page where you enter your scores will still be open after the deadline. So you can tell us after the February 5th and the March 5th deadlines, and that's completely fine. If you're an international student and you have not had an opportunity to take the SAT or ACT, that's completely fine. Many of our international applicants don't have test scores at all, so that is no problem at all. So if you have taken a test, we would like you to share your score with us. If you have not taken a test for any reason, that is fine. Don't let that hold you back. A couple of people have also asked about how can they write a good short answer? How can they demonstrate their passion for science? Things like that. So the applications are all reviewed holistically. And what that means is that we don't have a cutoff for test scores or GPA. We don't categorize people on those measures. We look at each applicant as a whole. So we do look at your transcript, but we also look at your short answers. Those are very important in getting to know you. And we look at your teacher recommendations. And so what you want to communicate in that is just really who you are, what's important to you, what you love to do, what makes you excited about science or math or really any other topic, and showing your passion for science and learning and your desire to pursue that in another setting is really what you should be trying to demonstrate in your short answers. All right, so Helen is telling me we're going to move on. So we'll go on to questions from the audience now. Thank you, Helen.
All right, great. So a lot of people are wondering about scheduling. What is time like? Or how is time allocated for lecture, independent study, and team projects?
Panelists, any of you want to talk about how that worked for you last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, I can talk a little about that. So basically we had like a work play time. So like we pretty much had that like in the evenings. I think those are about 3 hours. Like we usually had time to like just finish some of our problem sets, like collaborate with our teammates on like our projects. And then we also had like a specific time for like when our professors would give us lectures on like go over those videos we watched the day before, because like sometimes we watch videos about the topics we cover the next day. Then we had like a maybe 3 hours to like talk about that and then break up into our teams. Also like collaborate with other teams, like other practice problems. And then we also just had like the TA block where we pretty much had time to like ask TAs questions. Then we also sometimes played like Among Us and Scribble.io. We finished our working time. So like, yeah, they were pretty good on like coordinating our times, because like most of my partners were in different time zones and we were able to still like work pretty good and coordinate our times.
Great. Anybody else? Okay. Go ahead, Mateo.
In terms of how much time is allocated to each one, it's about 2 hours for lectures, 3 hours to work on your own, and then 3 hours like to work as a group on your own, just like in your group of 3. And then there's 3 more hours with other resources. For us, it was 8 hours a day of being online. And then I think some people worked when in the free time that they had just alone to just catch up. But it was around 8 hours for those lectures, independent study, and team project time.
Okay, great. All right. So maybe we'll do a quick rapid fire round robin question. Have you had any prior experience with research, and do you feel like that was helpful at SSP?
I didn't have any research experience before SSP, but I did fine anyway.
For me, I had lab experience in my bio class, but that was really small compared to what we did at SSP.
I also didn't have any research experience. I thought that my high school classes were honestly a pretty good foundation. So, don't feel discouraged if you don't have any research experience, because you can still do well.
Yeah, similarly to Mateo, I took biotech, so I had a little bit of experience with the lab, but I hadn't ever done research on my own.
I didn't have any prior research experience, but like the TAs and the professors do a really good job on like helping you like in the places that you need more help in.
Great. What kinds of topics are covered in the lectures and problem sets in both the Biochem and Astro programs?
So for Astro, we had a couple of weeks at the beginning where most of our problem sets and lectures were about like the foundational material, like some of the math behind it, calculus, astronomy, like spherical trig, and like orbital mechanics and things like that, and then some basic physics. And then for those first few weeks, we also had classes for like introductory Python, so that we would be able to code our program. And then after that, the lectures went into more specific material about orbital mechanics and like pertaining specifically to the method that we would use in our research to find the orbit of the asteroid we selected. And then we would spend most of our time, instead of on problem sets, we would spend most of our time on like coding our program and like working on like one component every day, basically.
And as for the Biochem program, I think the most interesting things that we worked with was a lot of the online software that we used to carry out our research. We did a lot of kind of working with genetic databases and 3D modeling of molecules. And we also had a virtual lab, which was really exciting. But a lot of the topics we covered, as I said, were a lot of chemistry and also statistics and programming, which was really cool. And as for the problem sets, I think the thing that I really liked about how it was structured was that we would work through problem sets kind of during our lecture period. And then later in the day, we would use those same skills that we had learned to kind of carry out a step of our project. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Great. So the next question will be a two-part question. Could you elaborate on what it's like to conduct research in an online setting, and also how you manage to work on a team of 3 on your research project?
I can speak about this. I didn't really think it was that much difference than when I had previous research experience in person. It could be a little difficult because my partners could have different time zones. But in general, when you have Zoom and you have other online platforms, it's just about like finding each other's strengths and weaknesses and communicating a lot. So as long as you communicate and you talk to the other TAs and other teams that might help you, it's really not that difficult. The content might be difficult and sometimes you might be confused and not know what to do, but your teammates are really there to help you and support you. So you don't really have to worry about the process being any harder just because it's online. At least that's how I felt, and the rest of the CUB campus felt that we really had each other's back all the time. We needed help in something.
And like to add on like the working in a group of 3, I think like SSP did a really good job on like pairing people based on like their strengths and like weaknesses. Cause like in my group of 3, like I was able to like help with the things I strengthen while like my teammates were able to help me like learn the concepts that I was a little weak in. So I think SSP did like a great job in like pairing us together so like we could actually collaborate and like understand it together.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like, I went into SSP with no prior coding experience, and the 2 other people on my team had like a lot of prior coding experience, and they were able to help me throughout the program, and so that at the end I was, I was able to complete it successfully and like learn a lot of Python. And similarly, I had a lot of experience in like astronomy. Like because I had done competitions and stuff before SSP, and so I was able to help them on that. So I think like my team really helped me get through SSP, I guess, better and like learn more throughout.
Great. And how close were you able to get, even though it was online this year?
I would say that, I mean, going in, you'd think that because you're just talking over Zoom that you might not be able to get close to the people, but you'd be honestly really surprised. Built into the program, there are like social hours kind of thing. So you get to know people through that, and they're multiple times a week. Even every Saturday, I believe we'd have like a fun social thing for 2 hours. So it was a lot of fun. And I mean, I'm still in a group chat with my 3 research teammates, and that was last summer, and we still talk a lot. So even though I didn't think I'd be able to, or like I wasn't sure, but it was really, I think we were able to get close. So
yeah, I think this is what surprised me the most. I didn't really expect to have any long-lasting friends after just talking on Zoom. But I mean, just like a couple months ago, me, Shelby, Bolu, and some other people got together again, talk about how things were going. And I still keep in touch with my 3 lab partners and even other people from Indiana that I talk to just in our free time during the program. And I really didn't expect it, but we had so much time together, and just going through the rigorous program, I think just allowed us to bond really easily.
Yeah, and just to chime in, since both of you brought up social Saturdays and the social hour, I believe the social hour is a harken back to a very long SSP tradition of gathering everyone together for dinner every single night. And so this effort was put in place so that you could see all of your other fellow participants and faculty members just to check in and talk about something that's not necessarily academics, right? So maybe Shelby or some other panelists, you can continue to speak about that and how that affected your experience.
Yeah, I can just add a little bit to what Mateo said. I definitely do feel really close, especially with my group of 3. We still talk all the time. And also with my group of 9, we called ourselves Fire Nation, and we were pretty active on our group chat. But then, yeah, our Indiana University group still has Zooms like every month or so, which is really nice. It's been super surprising and great to feel so close to so many of the people.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Like, one of my teammates is like almost my best friend now, even though I've never met her in real life. And it being virtual, it's even nicer because you can meet other people from other campuses. So I've gotten to meet like Kai, and we're like pretty close friends, I guess. And I've also met like Bolu online. And it's just a really great experience. And even though it's virtual, I think you even get even more chances to make even more like friendships than you've been expected before.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. Even though I did do it like actually in person. Just this past summer, we created like a group chat with all 4 campuses from 2019, and we were able to meet and talk with each other over Zoom. And I'm actually in some classes with them that weren't actually on my campus, but now I get to talk with them. So I think once you're really like in SSP, it's sort of like a whole family across all 4 campuses and within the campuses as well. So.
Excellent. All right. So next question, what qualities are embodied in an ideal SSP participant? Or better yet, what's some advice you would give to yourself at the beginning of the summer?
I think the main trait you need to have is just be passionate for what you're doing and put effort in, because I know everyone at SSP is all putting effort in. And so that group just keeps contributing, and we feel as if when one of us are trying, we all got to keep trying together. Some advice I would have given to myself would have been to be a little less nervous, because I expected it to be really challenging, and it was really challenging, but it was also really fun. And I think I in the first week, I wish I just enjoyed it a little more, because by the end, I look back and it was just an amazing experience.
Oh, Kai, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. I guess advice I would give to an applicant is like, I think, the kind of the core values of SSP are just like collaboration and wanting to improve yourself, but also help other people improve. And so that, that would be something that an ideal applicant would have, right? And then also, I was also very nervous at the start of the program, and not just about like academics and stuff, but also about the logistics of like financial aid and things like that, and time zone differences and all of that. And SSP was like really helpful in that regard, in that like. Sorting out financial aid with them, for example, was the most straightforward financial aid process I've had, even though my situation is like a little bit complicated. And they were, they provided all the resources I needed throughout the summer. So, I was kind of worried about that at the beginning, but, you shouldn't be.
Also, listen to like the advice that directors and the TAs give when they say like, ask questions and don't be afraid of not knowing what's going on. It's like, don't be afraid, because they will really help you. I went from the first 2 weeks, I was really afraid of asking questions and I was very confused. But in a week, I was able to catch up by asking questions during like the morning hours. And it really like does help if you like realize that it's nothing wrong with like not understanding what's happening, because the point of the program is to be a little confused and to like have to reach out and like know that you can still be confident while not understanding everything that's happening.
I think another important thing to know going in is just have a willingness to learn and to fail, honestly, because you're going to mess up a lot. It is really tough stuff, but be willing to mess up and then just understand by asking questions how to, I guess, like fix it. I lost my train of thought, but it's a willingness to learn, and also just like genuine interest in what you're doing, because you may not know if you want to continue doing it, but as long as you're open to trying new things, I think that's a really important thing going into it.
For the biochemistry program, you're all researching the same project, but with different organisms. For the astrophysics program, you're all doing orbital determination, but with different asteroids. So have you all gotten similar conclusions at the end of your project? Or have the conclusions been different, even between you and similar teams?
I think as for the Biochem program, we all ended up having somewhat similar inhibitors for our inhibitor design project. I think the fun thing to see was how different all of our final reports were, because we did have the creativity to kind of come up with our own abstract and introduction, and some freedom to decide what figures we wanted to include and how we would explain our work. So it was really fun to, look at our peers writing as well and kind of see how everyone took little different things away in their projects.
Yeah, for astrophysics, we also, like at the end, we were all working on different asteroids, but at the end you end up with 6 orbital elements either way. So our results, I guess, were kind of similar in that respect, but I would also, I would agree that there were a lot of options in how we could present our final paper, what kind of, uncertainty calculations and like visual figures and stuff that we could include. So there was a lot of freedom there, and I looked at some papers from fellow participants afterwards, and there were a lot of differences in how they were written. That was cool.
Yes, as a TA, it's kind of amazing to me, like all the different ways that you can arrive at the same answer and present, possibly similar findings. And on the other hand, I have seen cases like in the astrophysics program, the biochemistry program, where you start off with the same information, the same asteroid, the same fungus, and then you end up with completely different results or completely different conclusions. So that's kind of the fun part about SSP, is that you make all of your decisions, you make all of your own decisions, and you're making that effort yourself. Okay. How do the programs differ depending on campus? Do you get to meet other SSPers at other locations, and how do you communicate?
So for astrophysics, I can say like the campuses were very different, like the dynamics were very different between like CUB and NMT, and even in CUB, since we had 2 different groups depending on our time zones. It was they were like very fun groups, and each one of them had like different like personality. Like the first CUB group was a little more shy than the second one, and we tended to be cameras off most of the time, while the second one tended to have a lot more fun, but everyone gets to know each other. On Saturdays, we usually had events where we could bond or have like the talent show, and meeting different campuses. You can meet, for Astro, we had the Slack, so we all talked there and helped each other, but you could also like put your own effort in and try to reach out to the other SSPers and try to make like a big group chat, or like we have the Discord server, so it's really like up to you if you want to reach out, but SSP does make it easy to know everyone else.
Yeah, I would say like a similar thing for like the biochemistry too. Like there were kind of different dynamics between like Indiana and like Purdue. But then like for our like Saturday times when we got together, like there were some Saturdays that we both got to come together and like do stuff together. I think something different they did this year too is also like when we had guest speakers, we were able to like come together with the other campus too. So it's just really nice to like come together with those campuses and like meet other people, because like sometimes we went to breakout rooms and did like some activities related to like the presenters together with like people from the different campuses. So it's just really nice to like meet them and like work with them.
Let's see, I think there's been an answered question about virtual activities to bond with other researchers. So maybe some of you can speak about our guest lecture series as well.
Yeah, I really liked the guest lecture series. We essentially, I think it was every Saturday. I might be wrong, but I think every Saturday we would have it was like once a week or something. I kind of forgot, but we would have a guest lecturer come and do like a demonstration or a presentation or something. And it was on like a ton of different topics, and many of them were SSP alumni. So some of the ones that I can remember are like a professor who came and talked to us about cosmology, one that came and talked about like augmented reality and what innovations he had done in the field. What else? One of them came and did like this huge physical demonstration, like just set out on the table a ton of like chemistry and physics experiments, and those were really cool to watch. And then one of them was an engineer at NASA, and she she was working on like this one component of a satellite that was going to go to an asteroid. And so she talked about like the details of that component that she had helped design and talked about the function of the whole machine and things like that. And so I found a lot of value in that because, like I said, I came into SSP wanting to be an engineer, but through all the guest lecturers, like a lot of them were research scientists. And so I kind of found more value in research than I had before, because before I thought research was like really boring and theoretical, but the guest lecturers showed me, you know, it was something that I might want to do in the future.
Okay.
I think, do you want me to talk about biochem ones? So for the biochem guest lectures, we actually had a Nobel laureate, Dr. Jim Allison, who worked on cancer immunology. So that was a really, really interesting guest lecture. And we also had a lecture series on clinical trials and developing drugs. And we got to apply what we had learned to a mini presentation that was kind of a break from our final project work. So I think that really gave us perspective on kind of what we can do with what we're learning and this passion for science and how it can carry us through our lives. And I actually liked one of our guest lectures enough that I contacted her separately and had her come to be a guest speaker for my robotics team. So it was just really great to kind of make those connections and get to see really cool people doing science in the real world.
Okay. How do you choose your preferred campus? This could be an opportunity for you to hype up your academic directors and associate academic directors.
Well,
we're not going to have preferred campuses with an online program. That really applies when they're in person, and it has to do with travel and dates and so forth. So that question's actually off the form, right, Amy?
Yes, that's right. As soon as we announced that SSP 21 would be online, we removed the preferred campus questions. If for some reason you're an applicant who has a very strong preference, there are plenty of places in the short answer form or in the note to SSP where you can state that. But it doesn't really matter. They're not going to be very different online. It's a name for your group more than a location. So we'll plan how to arrange participants into their campus groups.
And there have been questions along the lines of how will I, what time in the morning and that sort of thing. And would you explain to folks when you're admitted, what happens next?
Sure. So when you are admitted, if you're admitted to SSP, you'll get an email that says congratulations, and it gives you all kinds of instructions for what to do next. And so just like our application is online, there is an enrollment portal. You'll use your same login. And if you're admitted, you'll get into the enrollment portal, and there are lots of forms and questions there. So we start with asking you to tell us if you're going to commit or not. And if you have any questions, you have a few days to decide and let us know. And if you are going to commit to SSP, we'll ask you what your time zone is, where you're going to be in the summer, what the time zone is. If you have a preference for working early in the day or later in the day, we'll ask you all kinds of technology questions to help determine if your computer and internet will be adequate. So there's a lengthy questionnaire that you'll go through and give us more information. And with that information from the admitted participants, we will take a look at how the schedule will work out and then assign you a specific schedule. So we won't know at the time that you're admitted, you won't know that you need to, be online at 9 a.m. your time. We just won't have that level of detail yet. But shortly after you're admitted, once we have people tell us their time zones, we'll provide that level of detail kind of in a conversation with the admitted students back and forth.
Okay. And as a follow-up to that, Amy, are the dates the same for all the campuses?
That has not been announced yet. It should be announced pretty soon on the website. We're working with our faculty first to decide if they would like all the programs to start on the exact same date or if we're going to offset a little bit. So it will be mid-June to later in July. We don't have exact dates. It will likely be a little bit different from what's published on the website when we had specific physical campuses that we were going to, but it'll be in that range, and we'll announce that as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Is it typical for SSP participants to continue their research project after the program is over? And for alumni who wish to pursue research in college, do you plan on furthering your research then?
Personally, I don't know if I'm going to continue the exact project that we were working on, but I was definitely inspired by the concepts that we worked with, especially molecular modeling, which I hadn't done before. So it was really exciting to kind of get exposure to that and get inspired to how to actually create my ideas with the tools that we learned.
Yeah, and from a TA perspective, I believe there's usually probably at least one or two participants who go on to somehow elaborate, the final report that they worked on in SSP, or they continue to develop their relationship with the academic director. So it's definitely an option to continue research, by no means obligatory. And I think as far as continuing research in college, SSP definitely provides you an advantage in that you understand what that experience is like. And, PIs in college, may see that as valuable, and, you have plenty of opportunities open for you there. I will say, there's a lot of, I think, anxiety probably about how SSP prepares you for college. So maybe some of our panelists can chime in about how maybe SSP has changed your perspective, your approaches to application cycle, so on and so forth.
I will say SSP has made me a more confident applicant. I realized that I don't really need to be afraid to apply to the places I'm interested in, that it's really like the environments can be different, but you can always find out that a lot of them are mostly collaborative, especially in the STEM fields, and that I shouldn't really be afraid of what I want to pursue. And it's also changed my interests at the same time. I didn't really know anything about computer science before, but after SSP, I realized it's probably something I want to do in the future. And it's also made me more interested in theoretical components of science that I wasn't interested in before. So it really helps you understand what you want to write about and what you want to convey about yourself to certain colleges. And it also helped you narrow down the types of environment you want to be in. So I realized I don't really want to apply to colleges that don't have that type of collaborative atmosphere that SSP fosters. And for other people, they realize that they do prefer doing independent research and aren't really looking for that collaborative atmosphere that's really ingrained into the program.
Okay, we have about 5 minutes left, so I'll go ahead and open up the floor to see if there's anything that Amy, Richard, or the panelists would like to say. Any final words?
I would just like to say that if you are maybe tentative about applying now, you're not really sure if you should or not, I would just say to do it, because I did not think I would get in at all. I kind of just applied to, it seemed interesting to me, so I thought that I would try and see what happened. And I got in and I was really shocked, but I was really happy that I got this experience. So if you're nervous about it, I would still say just to try.
I do have some closing remarks, but do any of the panelists want to add anything else, or Richard or Helen?
Just something that I think about a lot is this was, I think, the best way I could have spent the last summer, with inability to do a lot of things in person. I think this was the best thing I could have done and an absolutely amazing way to spend the summer.
Okay, anyone else? Well, if that's it, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you to all the participants who are out there asking a lot of questions. We were all busily typing in the Q&A, so I hope we answered a lot of your questions. Thank you to all of the panelists for sharing your experiences. I'm sure it's such a step beyond the website to have actual real life people who were there telling about what SSP is like and what it has meant to you. So thank you to all of you for taking some time to share your experiences. I just put a couple of pieces of information in the chat. So I sent you a link to Discord. We have a new admissions Discord server, and I can't promise that we're going to be chatting with you 24/7, but I will check in there periodically, and we'll be adding alumni to that to help answer your questions. So feel free to ask any additional general questions there. If you have specific questions about your application, or if you're eligible to apply, you can ask those by emailing admissions@ssp.org. So those are two resources that you can use after we close today to continue asking questions, and we will do our best to answer them. And again, thank you all for joining. We had a great time. I enjoyed panelists. I enjoyed hearing from all of you. I didn't get to, I read all of your comments at the end of the program, but it's nice to hear you say these things for everyone to hear. So thanks to all of you. And we appreciate your time in joining today. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.